Hi, and welcome to this first video as part of the third and final unit of the Higher Human Biology, Neurobiology and Immunology, where we'll start with Key Area 3.1, which looks at the division of the nervous system and the neural pathways. So this time we'll look at the structure of the central and peripheral nervous systems. So we can branch up our nervous system into different levels. So we have the central nervous system, the CNS, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, as well as the peripheral nervous system, the PNS, which is itself subdivided into the autonomic and somatic systems. So the somatic, the SNS, it deals with the voluntary responses and things like the skeletal muscles, whereas autonomic deals with those automatic responses, the smooth muscle, cardiac muscle for the involuntary control. The autonomic can also be subdivided, and it's divided into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Remember, any official abbreviations that we use can also be used during assessment. Let's start by looking at the somatic nervous system, the voluntary responses. So the SNS is made up of the sensory and motor neurons, those fibres that carry the electrical impulses around the body. So the sensory neurons, they take sense information, sight, taste, smell, from the sense organs towards your central nervous system, towards structures like the brain. Whereas the motor neurons, once your brain has made a decision and is going to act upon that information, the motor neurons will take those impulses from the CNS towards effectors such as muscles and glands. Where the SNS deals with those voluntary responses, the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, deals with the automatic responses. And it's made up of those two antagonistic systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, which means they both act upon the same structures but cause the opposite effect. So, three to highlight are the effects these systems have on heart rate, breathing rate, and peristalsis, which is the digestive process. So, starting with the sympathetic, think about during your fight or flight response. So, if you're frightened, you're in danger, what would you need your body do to help you survive this potentially dangerous scenario? Well, the sympathetic system would kick in to speed up your heart rate, speed up your breathing rate, while slowing down the peristalsis and the intestinal secretions. However, we can't sustain that state for a prolonged period of time, so ultimately the parasympathetic system will take over and do the opposite thing. So slow down the heart rate, slow down the breathing rate, and start peristalsis and those secretions back up again. Hence its nickname, the rest and digest system. So let's try some past paper questions. So here we have two diagrams to show ways to classify the nervous system structurally and functionally. So pause the video and identify X, Y and Z. So let's start by looking at the structural diagram. So we can see that we've got the central system with the brain and the spinal cord. Therefore X must be the peripheral system. Looking across to the functional diagram, Y controls the contraction of the skeletal muscles, Z the contraction of the smooth muscles, so Y must be somatic, and Z the autonomic. So let's try some problem solving ones now. So again, pause the video and hit play when you're ready to reveal the answers. Question 1, you're asked to state the heart rate when only the sympathetic nerve is blocked. So here we've got the heart rate just above 70 and this time point where the sympathetic nerve is blocked, and we can see it drops. So come along, read from the graph, and we should see that the heart rate drops to 58. The parasympathetic nerve has a greater effect on the resting heart rate than the sympathetic nerve, so use information from the graph to justify this statement. So again, looking at our graph, further along we can see the parasympathetic nerve becomes blocked and the heart rate increases up to 90. So what we have to do is compare the two time points. So what's different about when just the sympathetic nerve is blocked versus both of them? So what we see, we've got a greater change from the resting heart rate. So it goes up more when the parasympathetic nerve is also blocked. Tentatively, you could have quoted some data to also justify that response. Okay. So as long as your answer included a comparison and referred to the nerve blockage, you would have picked up the marks for that question. And finally, F, you're asked to state one other effect of the sympathetic nervous system on the body. So lots to choose from. So the other two go-to examples that we highlighted were its effects on breathing rate, where it increases the breathing rate, or its decrease of the digestive process, peristalsis of the intestinal secretions. But because there are many different effects of the sympathetic nervous system, any correctly named example would have been accepted. Just make sure you give a very specific example, so just stating that it prepares the body for fight or flight would not have been sufficient. So I hope this video has helped to clarify the structure and function of the branches of the nervous system. But if you do have any questions, please just let me know.